Hello, good humans. My name's Amanda, and welcome back to Self. On this podcast, I share ideas, experiences, and have conversations to explore the self. By developing our own self-awareness, we can better show up for ourselves and those around us, and hopefully all live happier and healthier lives. It's been a while since I've last been on here, so today's episode is a bit of a catch up and a bit about why I've been avoiding you. The last episode I recorded and released was in April. I can't believe it's actually been nearly 3 months. And the truth is, I have been avoiding you. I've been avoiding sitting down and recording, and I've had the space, the setup. I've got all my equipment here in Bali. And week after week, I found it impossible to bring myself to this seat. I found it impossible to come back here in front of the camera. And there's something that is really vulnerable about this, I guess. The whole podcast has always been me being very open and honest about my experiences, about what has happened in the past or what's going on for me at a particular season or point in time. And my last episode was about the lessons I'd learned from my great aunt, a woman who had and still has a profound impact on my life. And when I brought myself to record that episode, it was tough. I'd just gotten back from Melbourne after saying goodbye to her, and she hadn't passed away yet. But I knew that that was going to be the last time that I would see her. So I guess the grief kind of started, but there was perhaps some part of me still holding on to something because she was still alive. And after recording my last episode, I left Perth and came to Bali. And this is where I spend a lot of my time. For those who don't know, I usually spend about 6 or 7 months here in the year. And this is where I free dive and where I train. I've got a great community here. So I arrived here pretty much bang on 3 months ago and got settled in. And perhaps at first I thought I was making an excuse. You know, I'm a bit busy, didn't have time to record an episode. I'll get to it next week. Usually I like to have a couple recorded ready to go so that I'm a bit in front, but given the last few weeks in Australia, it was just way too much for me to get to. So I wasn't in that place, and that was okay. And I started on an instructor course to teach kids freediving. And during the course, right towards the end, I got a call or a message that my great aunt had passed away. And I guess that's where it really became real, this goodbye. And the funeral was being organised, and I felt a lot of different emotions, and it was challenging for me to not be there. I wanted to go to Melbourne to be there, and at the same time I couldn't leave the course halfway. We'd had our visa. There was all these other, I guess, practical things to consider. And so in the end, I wanted to write a few words and say some things at a funeral. My auntie read it out, and I can honestly say that I haven't experienced grief in the same way that I have in the past few months. And that's been a big part of why I haven't found not only the motivation, but the creativity, the ability to show up and to record. Life obviously continues even when you are in a dark or a hard place. Life continues no matter how much suffering you might be experiencing at any point in time. And I know that from my own experiences. And life continues even when you're grieving and you're dealing with the loss of someone who you care so deeply about. And so life has had to continue for me, obviously. You know, I've been training, I've been here in Bali, I've been spending time with people. And what I have found in my grief is at least one moment of every day when I really feel her loss. What I've learned about grief in these past few months is that there's no time limit on it. It's not something that you feel and process and then you get over. And I've spoken about grief before on a previous episode about my divorce and about ending relationships, and a lot of people reached out to me after that. And some of you told me about how much you could relate to that, whether it was in a romantic relationship, in a business relationship, that you really felt that. And I guess a part of me knew that the next episode that I was going to record had to be about grief. It just had to be, because it is one of the most significant parts of my current life experience, I suppose. It is a part that occupies, like I said, at least a moment of every day. It consumes, even if it's not all consuming, it consumes parts of me. It consumes some of my energy, and it's made it hard for me to dig deep, to find motivation, to allow all of life to continue as it did before, because life isn't the same as it was before. And I think when my great aunt passed away, it felt like a part of me was now missing. And maybe missing isn't the right word, but perhaps like that part has just gone dark or quiet. And I feel it in my body. I feel it in my general demeanor. And something I was really cautious to do was to not overwhelm and overload myself with too many things. So I spent a lot of nights in, and the processing of the grief has happened a lot within me. You know, it's, even though I'm typically someone who processes through talking, it's not been something that I've wanted to speak about too much, to be honest. Even with David, my partner, I have felt a lot of my creativity almost diminish a bit, I suppose. And yeah, that kind of motivation fade away a bit. And so the past 3 months has been a mixture of like just getting on with things, getting on with what was the bare minimum, and I avoided the podcast completely. And for that, I'm sorry, because I know that some of you have been waiting for new episodes, and thank you for messaging me. Thank you for reaching out and asking. And I have been meaning to sit down and to record this, but it was so hard to. And I'm sure that many of you can relate to this feeling of having something sitting there in the back of your head, knowing that you want to do it. It's not even a need. It's not like it's a responsibility or a burden or something, but it's something that you want to do, but you find impossible to compel yourself to do. And so it sits in this, in a list or in this pile or this section of things that you need to conjure up the energy to do. And meanwhile, all the other things can still keep going. The cogs keep turning, wheels keep turning, whatever that saying is, and you keep on going. And I guess that's what life has felt like for me, where I've had to work, so that keeps going. I'm showing up in whatever capacity, in whatever ways that I can for those around me. But this space was the thing that I deemed, I guess, too hard. It was in the too hard pile. And so I'm here before you to tell you what's been going on and to share a bit about my grieving experience, because ultimately that's what this podcast is about. It's about life and shared experiences. It's about these things that happen in our lives and what we feel, what we think, what we experience, and how I know this deeply to be true, and I know that many of you have shared this with me as well, that it can feel extremely lonely, that sometimes we can feel like no one else has ever felt this way. No one else really understands or gets it. And I guess this is why I have this podcast. I want people to feel seen and heard, and to feel like their experience isn't isolated to just them, that it is a shared human experience, and that many of us go through this, and that you're not alone in it. So grief, so different to grief I've experienced before, because I've never felt a loss to the same degree as I have. I've shared with you about how my Ba'i was the greatest love of my life, the person who I felt unconditionally loved by, accepted by, who I've never felt like I've had to prove anything to, and who was so proud of me. And I guess I thought that she would be around forever. And what I've found in the past few months is each day I remember something, whether it's recalling the same memories over and over again, or I remember something new, but I kind of get these images and these flashes of moments with her. And when I think of them, I feel a mixture of joy for the time that we had, of sadness for the time that we no longer have, and gratitude for the incredible woman that she was and the value that she brought into my life, and the impact that she had. And that mixture of emotions, I guess, is what's wrapped up in this complex feeling of grief. When you lose something or someone, and you feel this bundle of different emotions that comes along with it each time a fleeting memory comes back, or you just recognize that feeling of loss that's inside you. And that's the thing, is there's no time limit on grief, and it comes when it wants to come, and it comes in waves, and it might come for a second and disappear, but it is this beautiful reminder of the precious gift of life. It is a beautiful reminder of the impact that people can have on you and that you can have on people. And that's what I've been thinking of a lot recently, is what an incredible gift it was to know her, and that in all of this pain and sadness I might feel is so much gratitude to have known her. And that's really what that last episode I released a few months ago was about, was just the incredible lessons that she taught me and how grateful I am for that. And excuse me, in this grief, I've really learned to take it easy on myself. My general perfectionist standards mean that a part of me can often guilt myself and really blame myself for not being good enough. You know, not releasing an episode for 3 months is obviously not just a slip up, but I recognize that it was an active decision for me, and that I wasn't in a place to get myself here in front of the camera to record. And I could go easy on myself and let go of that. And there are some times in life where we ought to push ourselves and persevere and move forward. And I believe there are times for us to let go and to accept that where we are right now might not be in a position to be pushed. And so in grieving, I also learned to love myself better, to go easy on myself a bit more. And I hope that if any of you who are listening have recently experienced any kind of tough season, any kind of grief for yourself in whatever capacity, that you can also go easy on yourself. That it's okay sometimes to let things slip. And, you know, in all of this, I knew deep down, it's not like I was giving up on the podcast. It's not that I was giving up on myself. I just knew that right now I couldn't juggle everything, and I had to let something go momentarily, temporarily. And this was it. And when I was ready, I knew that I would get back in front of the camera, and I would sit and I would record this episode and tell you that I'm back. Even though right now I'm thinking, how on earth am I going to get ahead and record in time, because I'm leaving in a couple of weeks to go to Perth for a wedding and then going to the Philippines to compete in my first steps competitions. There's a lot going on, but I am feeling hopeful, and I'm feeling a bit more motivated, and I'm feeling okay in my grief to take another step forward when I haven't felt strong enough to in the past 3 months. So if you're listening to this, thank you for tuning back into self. Thank you for supporting this podcast. Thank you for being a part of this journey with me. And I will be seeing you next week. And there's going to be more. There is always more. And there's a lot kind of in the works and planned. And there's been a lot of things that I've wanted to talk about. It's just been a bit hard to. So yeah, thank you for being here with me and being on this journey. I will see you next week, next Thursday. You have my word. Bye.